In this short demo, I'm going to show you how to create a new service from a YAML file using a static port. I still have my Minikube running. I don't have any pods, so I'm going to create another pod again. So I'm going to do kubectl create. From my first app, I'm going to create this hello world. So this is the hello world pod, hello world example.com. I'm going to describe it again. So this has started. So it has the label app hello world. For this pod, I'm going to run a service. So I have first app hello world node port service. And this is going to open the node port 31001. It's going to use the Node.js port, which is defined right here in the pod definition. There's name Node.js port. This pod has labels app hello world. I have a selector on app hello world. So this is going to be the service for this pod. And I'm specifying this node port. So rather than having a random port, I should be able to access this port and then I will be able to connect to this pod. So kubectl create this first app hello world node port service. And then for Minikube service, the name of this service is in the metadata, hello world service. I want to know the URL, and you see it has port 31001. This is the IP I can use to connect to the app. So I'm going to do curl of this URL and I get hello world. Now, if you're on AWS, then you cannot do this command, but you can go straight to the nodes. You just have to change the security groups. I already showed you this in one of the introduction lectures for AWS, how you can do that. This is just showing how you can do the same thing, creating a service, but with a static node port. If we ask the info from our service, we can do kubectl describe, and you can either say service or you can say SVC, which is short for service, and then we can describe this hello world service. And this will give us some more information. If we want to get a list of all the services, we can just do kubectl get SVC, and then we get a summarize of all running services. This was already here. It's one of the services running for Minikube. This is the one we created. So you see here cluster IP. This is the IP here. This is the cluster IP I was talking about in the theory. This is the default cluster IP. This is the default virtual IP that our service gets. This IP is only reachable within the cluster. This is the IP that we can use to externally access the cluster. And then we see node port 31001. We also see that another endpoint has been created. So this endpoint can also be used within the cluster. So there are multiple ways to access your app. This node port is going to be the static way to access our cluster. Let me delete this service and let me then create it again. Let's describe it again. You see IP address is now different. So this virtual IP changes if we don't define it in the YAML file. So this one for us is not static. This port number, because we defined it, is a static port number. This is the one that we can use to configure external services to access our application in this pod. If you would want a static virtual IP, a static cluster IP, we would also have to define this in our YAML file. That's it for this demo. I will come back to services when I'm going to discuss service discovery using DNS.